In this video, we will take a deep dive into the Rebel Ridge 2024. We will break down the storyline, give a clear plot summary, and explore the cast and character. We will also look at the film production detail and box office performance. Finally, we will share our reviews along with some personal reaction. So let's get started. When we begin talking about Rebel Ridge 2024, it's important to slow down for a moment and understand why this film deserves attention in today's crowded world of action cinema. At first glance, it may seem like just another entry in the action thriller genre, but the deeper you look, the more you realize that this film is going something very different and very deliberate. Let's start with the genre. Rebel Ridge sits at the intersection of action, crime, and drama, but it does not follow the typical formula we have come to expect. This is not the kind of movie that relies on constant explosion, fast paced chases, or exaggerated heroic. Instead, it leans into a slow burn thriller style where action builds gradually and every moment feel grounded in reality. The action, when it comes, feel not forced. This alone make the film stand out in a genre that often prioritizes spectacle over substances. Now, when we talk about the film, we can't ignore the influence of its director, Jeremy Saulnier. Saulnier is known for his distinct storyline approach, and if we have seen his earlier work like Blue Renew or Green Room, you recognize his signature style immediately. He has a way of creating tension that feel almost uncomfortable in a good way. His films are not about larger than life heroes, they are about ordinary people placed in extraordinary, often dangerous situations. In Rebel Ridge, he continued this tradition, crafting a story that feels raw, personal, and instantly human. Linear direction also play a key role in shaping the film's production style. Everything about the movie feels stripped down and realistic. The cinematography avoids flashy techniques and instead focuses on natural lighting and grounded visual. This gives the film a documentary like authenticity, making the story feel closer to real life. You do not feel like you are watching a stage performance, you feel like you are witnessing event unfold. Another important aspect of the production style is how the film handles action. Unlike highly stylized action films such as John Wick, Rebel Ridge take a more restrained approach. The fight sequences are not designed to look cool, they are designed to feel real. They are messy, unpredictable, and sometimes even uncomfortable to watch. This choice reflects the film's overall commitment to realism and reinforces its serious tone. Sound design and pacing also play a crucial role. The film uses silence and minimal background music to build tension, allowing scenes to breathe. This creates a sense of unease that slowly grows as the story progresses. Instead of overwhelming the audience with noise and movement, the film invites you to pay attention, to observe, to think, and to feel. What truly makes Rebel Ridge worth discussing, though, is how all these elements, genre, direction, and production style come together to create a film that feels both timely and relevant. It does not just entertain, it challenges the viewer. It asks viewer about power, justice, and the system that govern our lives. All while staying firmly rooted in the convention of a thriller. As we move forward in discussing this film, keep in mind that Rebel Ridge is not trying to be loud or flashy. Its strength lies in its restraint, its realism, and its ability to create tension without relying on traditional action tropes, and that in itself is what makes it a film exploring in detail. Rebel Ridge can be better understood by examining its production budget in a calm, analytical way, focusing on how financial discussion shape the overall film. The estimated budget for the film is around 28 to 30 million dollars, placing it in what is commonly considered the mid-budget range in modern filmmaking. This level of funding is significant enough to ensure professional production quality, but still far below the large scale budget often seen in mainstream Hollywood action film. A budget of this size typically required careful planning and prioritization. In the case of Rebel Ridge, the allocation of resources appeared to be directed toward realism and controlled storytelling rather than visual spectacle. One of the most noticeable choices is the casting approach. Instead of relying on highly paid, globally recognized stars, the film features capable and experienced actors such as Aaron Pierre and Don Johnson. This suggests that the production aimed to balance performance quality with cost efficiency, allowing more of the budget to be used elsewhere. Another major factor in budget distribution is the use of real world location instead of constructed sets or digital environment. Shooting in practical locations generally reduce cost related to set design and visual effect while also contributing to a more authentic visual style. This approach aligns with the filmmaking style of Jeremy Saulnier, who is known for grounded realistic storytelling. By avoiding expensive studio builds and heavy CGI, the film maintains a lower production cost without compromising its intended tone. The handling of action sequence also reflect a strategic use of budget. Unlike high budget action films that invest heavily in large explosion, elaborate stunt and computer generated imagery, Rebel Ridge focuses on smaller scale practical action. These scenes are designed to feel realistic or controlled, which reduce the need for costly special effects and extensive post production work. This not only lower expensive but also support the film's grounded narrative style. Crew structure is another important area where financial efficiency can be observed. Jeremy Saulnier took on multiple roles in the production process, including writing, directing, and editing. This kind of involvement can reduce the need for additional high level personnel, helping to keep the cost manageable. At the same time, it ensures a consistent creative vision throughout the film, which is often a priority in mid budget production. When compared to the similar film, the budget of the films become more meaningful. Many mainstream action films, such as those in major franchises, often exceed $100 million and allocate large portion of their budget to visual effects, international location, and high-profile actors. In contrast, the films operate on a smaller scale, focusing on character-driven storytelling and localized setting. Even when compared to the other action thriller, its budget reflects a more restrained and focused production model. The film released through Netflix also influenced how the budget is structured. Unlike theatrical release where financial success depends heavily on box office revenue, streaming platform elevate performance based on viewership and audience engagement. This allows for more control budget and reduce the financial risk associated with production. As a result, films like Rebel Ridge can maintain moderate budget while still reaching a wide audience. Overall, the production budget of the film demonstrates a balanced approach between cost and creative intent. The film does not attempt to compete with large-scale production in terms of spectacle. Instead, it uses its financial resources to support a grounded, realistic style, emphasizes performances, atmosphere, and narrative tension. This approach reflects a broader trend in filmmaking where mid-budget projects aim to achieve impact through efficiency and focused storytelling rather than sheer scale. These films operate within the broad space of the action thriller genre, but it does not follow the conventional expectation typically associated with that category. Instead of relying on spectacle or exaggerated intensity, the film adopts a more restrained and grounded approach, blending elements of crime drama with a slow burning psychological tension. This combination creates a genre identity that feels more deliberate and controlled than explosive or purely entertaining. The atmosphere of the film is one of its most defining qualities. There is a persistent sense of unease that runs throughout, created not through loud or dramatic moments, but through subtitle visual and auditory choices. The environment feels quiet, almost heavy, as if something is constantly building beneath the surface. This subdued atmosphere allows tension to develop gradually, making even small interaction feel significant. The film does not attempt to overwhelm the viewers. Instead, it draws them in through a steady accumulation of pressure. Pacing play a crucial role in shaping this experience. Rather than moving quickly from one high energy moment to another, the film adopts a slow and measured rhythm. Scenes are allowed to breathe and time is given for situation to unfold naturally. This deliberate pacing may feel unusual for viewers expecting a traditional action structure, but it serves an important purpose. By slowing things down, the film increases the impact of key moments, making them feel more intense when they occur. The gradual build-up tension becomes more important than the frequency of action. The tone of the film remains serious and grounded throughout. There is a very little use of humor or stylistic exaggeration, which reinforce the sense of realism. This is not a film that aims to entertain through charm or wit. Instead, it maintains a consistent emotional weight. The seriousness of the tone encourages the audience to engage with the film on a more thoughtful level rather than simply reacting to surface level excitement. This tonal consistency is closely aligned with the filmmaking style of Jeremy Saulnier, who is known for creating films that emphasize realism and emotional tension. Stylistically, the film avoids many of the visual techniques commonly used in modern action cinema. There is a minimum reliance on rapid editing, flashy camera movement, or stylized choreography. Instead, the cinematography tends to be steady and observational, often focusing on natural lighting and simple composition. This creates a visual language that feels authentic and unembellished. The camera does not try to impress the viewers, it simply presents the scene in a clear and direct manner. Sound design is another important component of the film's mood. Rather than using a constant musical score to guide emotion, the films often rely on silence or minimal background sound. This choice enhances the feeling of tension, as the absence of music makes movement feel more immediate and unpredictable. When sound is used, it tends to be subtle and purposeful, supporting the atmosphere rather than dominating it. In comparison to more stylized action films like John Wick, which emphasize choreography and visual flair, a Rebel Ridge take a noticeably different path. Its approach is closer to realism, where action feels grounded and consequence carry weight. This distinction places the film in a subcategory of action thriller that prioritize mood and tension over spectacle and speed. Overall, the genre and the mood of the film are defined by restrained realism and controlled intensity. The film created its impact not through scale or visual success, but through atmosphere, pacing, and tone. It presents a version of the action thriller genre that is quieter and more focused, offering an experience that relies on tension and realism rather than constant excitement. When approach this movie, audience expectation tend to form well before the first scene even being. These expectations are shaped by several factors, including the film genre, positioning, the reputation of its director, Jamre Solinier, and the platform releasing it, Netflix. Together, these elements create a specific mindset for viewers, especially those familiar with modern action thrillers. From a demographic perspective, the film is most likely to attract adult viewers who appreciate serious, grounded storytelling. This is not a family oriented or light entertainment film. Instead, it appeals to audience who prefer tension driven narratives and morally complex situations. Viewers in the age range of late teens to middle age adult are more likely to connect with its tone, particularly those who already enjoy crime dramas or realistic action film. Younger audience expecting fast-paced excitement may approach the film with different expectations, which influence their overall experience. Genre fans, especially those who regularly watch action films, may initially expect something similar to mainstream titles that emphasize high energy sequence and stylized combat. Many modern action films have trained audience to anticipate rapid pacing, frequent set pieces, and visually polished choreography. However, those familiar with genre saulnier previous work may anticipate a very different approach. His films are known for their slow tension, minimalism, and emotional weight. As a result, there is often a split in expectation between casual viewer and those who know his filmmaking style more closely. Another key factor shaping expectation is the film categorization as an action movie. The label itself can be somewhat misleading depending on the viewer's interpretation. Some audience may expect explosive sequence in constant movement, while others may anticipate a more restrained character driven experience. In the case of Rebel Rage, viewers who go in expecting a traditional action spectacle may find themselves adjusting their expectation early on. This adjustment is not necessarily negative, but it does require a willingness to engage with the slower and more deliberate style of storytelling. Anticipated theme also play an important role in shaping audience expectation. Based on the film marketing and overall tone, viewers may expect theme related to authority, justice, and personal resilience. There is an underlying assumption that the film will explore serious social issues rather than simply providing entertainment. This can attract an audience that values thought provoking content, but it may also create a sense of heaviness that not all viewers are looking for. Those expecting purely escapistic entertainment might find the tone more intense or reflective than anticipated. The involvement of Netflix also influences how audience approach the film. Streaming platforms have creating a viewing culture where audience often expect immediate engagement. Many viewers are used to content that captures attention quickly, especially giving the option to pause, skip, or switching to something else. As a result, there may be an expectation for the film to establish its tone and direction early on. However, films like Rebel Rage may challenge this habit by taking a more gradual approach, which can either deepen appreciation or test patience depending on the viewers. For fans of grounded, realistic cinema, expectations are often more aligned with what the films deliver. These viewers may anticipate a focus on atmosphere, character tension, and subtitle storytelling technique. They are less concerned with constant action and more interested in how the film built its mood over time. On the other hand, viewers who primarily enjoy high production, spectral driven action films may approach the film with a different set of assumptions. This difference in expectation can significantly influence how the film is perceived. There is also an expectation tied to performance quality without relying on globally dominant can attract viewers who value authenticity and strong performance, but it may not generate the same level of excitement for audience who are drawn to similar or familiar faces. Ultimately, audience expectation for this movie 2024 are shaped by a combination of genre labeling, director reputation, and viewing habits. The film sits in a space where it both aligns with and challenges traditional action thriller expectation. For some viewers, this creates curiosity and anticipation. For others, it may lead to uncertainty about what kind of experience they are about to have. The key factor is how flexible the audience is adjusting their expectation. Those willing to embrace a slower, more grounded approach are more likely to find the films engaging, while those expecting fast paced entertainment may need time to adopt. When considering the target audience for the film, it becomes clear that the film is designed for a fairly specific group of viewers rather than a broad all age crowd. Its tone, style, and genre positioning generally guided toward audience who appreciate grounded storytelling and control intensity rather than fast paced entertainment. In terms of age group, the film is most suitable for mature audience, generally ranging from late teens to adult. This is not due to explicit content alone, but more because of the film's serious tone and deliberate pacing. Younger viewers, particularly children or early teenagers, may find it difficult to engage with the film's slow rhythm and restrained style. The movie requires patience and attention, qualities that are more commonly found in older audience who are accustomed to character driven narrative. Adults in their 20s, 30s, and beyond are more likely to connect with its atmosphere and thematic weight. From an interest perspective, the film is primarily aimed at viewers who enjoy realistic and thought provoking cinema. These include people who prefer movies that focus on tension, atmosphere, and human behavior rather than spectacle. Fan of crime dramas, psychological thriller, and grounded action film may will find the films more aligned with their taste. Those who appreciate subtitle storytelling choice, such as minimal dialogues, quiet tension, and gradual development, are particularly well suited for this type of film. The movie also appealed to viewers who are interested in serious social themes and moral complexity. Rather than presenting a straightforward, entertaining narrative, it leaned toward a more reflective style. This makes it appealing to audience who enjoy analyzing film, discussing underlying ideas, and engaging with content on a deeper level. Viewers who prefer movies that raise questions rather than simply provide answers are more likely to appreciate what the films offer. Genre preferences play a major role in defining the target audience. While Rebel Ridge is categorized as an action thriller, it is important to understand that it belongs to a more restrained subcategory of that genre. Fans of highly stylized action films such as John Wick may not be the primary audience, as their films emphasize choreography, speed, and visual flair. In contrast, the film is more appealing to viewers who enjoy slow burn thriller and realistic action, where tension builds gradually and the focus remains in atmosphere rather than spectacle. The influence of the director Jeremy Saulnier also have defined the intended audience. Viewers familiar with his previous work are likely to be drawn to this film as it follows a similar approach in terms of tone and storytelling. His films typically attract audience who value authenticity, minimalism, and emotional intensity. As a result, the target audience includes cinephiles and regular viewers who actively seek out films with a distinct directorial style. The platform released through Netflix further shaped the audience profile. Streaming platforms tend to reach a wide range of viewers, but they also cater to niche preferences through algorithm driven recommendation. This makes the film is likely to be suggested to users who have previously watched crime dramas, thriller, or realistic action films. Therefore, while the film is accessible to broad audience, it is more effectively targeted toward viewers those viewing history aligned with its tone and genre. It is also worth noting that the film may appeal to viewers who prefer serious and immersive experience over casual viewers. This is not the type of movie typically watched in the background or while multitasking. It demands attention and engagement, making it more suitable for viewers who are willing to invest time and focus. People who enjoy analyzing choreography, sound design, and pacing will find more value in the films compared to those looking for quick entertainment. On the other hand, the film is less suited for audience seeking light-hearted content or escapism. Viewers who prefer comedy, romance, or high-energy blockbuster may find the tone too subdued or the pacing too slow. Similarly, those who expect constant action or dramatic spectacle may not fully connect with the film's restrained style. Overall, the target audience for the film can be described as mature, thoughtful viewers who appreciate grounded storytelling and slow building tension. It is made for individuals who value realism, subtlety, and thematic depth over speed and spectacle. While it remains accessible through a major platform, its true appeal lies with a more focused group of viewers who are drawn to serious atmosphere driven cinema. The emotional experience offered by the film is shaped less by dramatic highs and lows and more by a steady control build of tension and unease. Rather than aiming for immediate emotional reaction, the film creates a lingering atmosphere that gradually settles into the viewers. This approach reflects the filmmaking style of Jeremy Saulnier, who is known for constructed emotion through restraint rather than intensity. In terms of mood, the films maintain a consistently serious and grounded tone. There is a quiet heaviness present throughout, one that does not rely on loud or exaggerated movement to make its impact. The emotional environment feels subdued, almost tense in a subtitle way, as if something is always just beneath the surface. This kind of mood invite the viewers to stay alert and engage even in moments where very little seems to be happening on the surface. Instead of providing comfort or escapism, the films lean into discomfort, encouraging the audience to sit with that feeling. The pacing of the emotional experience is slow and deliberate. Feelings are not rushed or forced, they are allowed to develop naturally over time. This creates a sense of anticipation where the viewers becomes increasingly aware of the underlying tension. The emotional impact does not come from sudden shocks but from the accumulation of small control moments. This gradual build can lead to a deeper sense of involvement as the audience becomes more invested in the atmosphere rather than specific events. The theme suggested by the viewers accumulates significantly to its emotional tone. There is an emphasis on ideas such as control, pressure, and resilience. These themes are not presented in an exaggerated or overly dramatic way, but rather through a grounded and realistic lens. As a result, the emotions feel more relatable and immediate. The viewers is not simply observing a fictional world, they are engaging with situations that feel possible and at times uncomfortably close to reality. Another important aspect of the emotional experience is the sense of isolation that the films convey. Even without explicit storytelling detail, the atmosphere suggests a world where individual must navigate challenges with limited support. This creates a feeling of vulnerability that can resonate strongly with the audience. The emotional weight comes from this scene of being alone with a larger system, which add to the film's overall intensity. The intended impact of the film is not to entertain in a traditional sense, but to provoke thought and reflection. It encourages viewers to engage on a deeper level, paying attention to subtitle cues and emotional undercurrent. This type of engagement can lead to a more lasting impression, as the feelings generated by the film tend to linger even after its end. Rather than providing a clear emotional release, the films leave space for the audience to process what they have experienced. Sound and silence also play a key role in shaping the emotional landscape. The minimal use of music allow natural sound and quiet movement to carry more weight. This absence of constant audio guidance forces the viewers to interrupt the mood on their own, which can make the experience feel more personal. Silence, in particularly, becomes a tool for guiding tension as it heightens awareness and draws attention to even the smallest details. For viewers who are accustomed to fast-paced, emotionally direct film, this approach may feel unusual. The film does not guide the audience towards specific emotional responses in an obvious way. Instead, it creates a space where emotions develop organically. This can be rewarding for those who appreciate subtlety, but it may require patience and openness from the viewers. Ultimately, the emotional experience of the film is defined by restrained realism and gradual intensity. It offers a mood that is steady and immersive, themes that are grounded and thought provoking, and an intended impact that lingers rather than resolve. It is less about immediate emotional gratification and more about creating a lasting sense of tension and reflection. At its core, the film is built around the idea of tension between the individual and the system that surrounds them. Rather than functionally purely as an action thriller, the films operate as an exploration of power, control, and the limit of personal agency. It examines what happens when a single individual is placed within a structure that feels immovable and how resistance takes shapes under pressure. This conceptual foundation is closely aligned with the storytelling approach of Jean-Marie Saulnier, whose work often focuses on ordinary people navigating constraint and often hostile environment. One of the central themes embedded in the film is the notion of institutional power versus individual's will. The story concept does not rely on grand abstract system in a distant or exaggerated level. Instead, it suggests structure that are familiar, present, and embedded on the surface with everyday life. This system operates with a kind of quiet authority, often appearing routine on the surface while carrying deeper implication beneath. The film's core idea revolve around how much system can maintain control, not necessarily through overt force alone, but through routine, procedure, and normalization. Closely connected to this is the theme of resistance. The film does not present resistance as something immediate or dramatic. Rather, it is shown as something that develops gradually. It emerges from pressure, from repeated constraint, and from the realization that conventional path may not lead to resolution. This makes resistance feel less like a heroic act and more like a necessary response to circumstances. This concept suggests that resistance is not always driven by ambition or ideology, but often by persistence and necessity. Another important aspect of the film's core idea is moral ambiguity. Instead of presenting a clear distinction between right and wrong, the narrative framework allows space for complexity. Actions and decisions exist within shades of grey, shaped by context rather than absolute principle. This ambiguity encourages the audience to reflect rather than judge, to consider the conditions under which choices are made rather than evaluating them in isolation. The film's message in this sense lean toward understanding human behavior within system rather than simplifying it into binary categories. The concept of control is also central to the film thematic structure. Control is not portrayed as something purely physical or external. It is also psychological and procedural. It exists in the way environments are structured, in the way authorities exercise, and in the way individuals are expected to respond. The film suggests that control can be subtle and pervasive, shaping behavior without always being visible. This creates a sense of tension that is less about immediate conflict and more about underlying pressure. Linked to control is the idea of limitation, both imposed and internal. The film explores how individuals navigate boundaries that are placed upon them, as well as those that they impose on themselves. These limitations may be legal, social, or personal, but they all contribute to a sense of confinement. The story concept implies that understanding these boundaries is essential to understanding the choice character make. It also raises question about how fair one is willing to or able to push against those limits. The theme of resilience emerges as a response to these pressure. However, resilience in this context is not depicted as an idealized or inspirational quality. Instead, it is portrayed as something quieter and more grounded. It is about endurance rather than drift, about continuing within difficult circumstances rather than overcoming them in a dramatic sense. These interpretations align with the film's overall tone, which avoid exaggeration in favor of realism. And other layer within the film's core idea is the examination of system as self-sustaining entities. The concept suggests that systems do not rely solely on individuals to maintain their structure. They are designed to continue operating regardless of individual action. This creates a sense of imbalance where personal effort may feel small in comparison to the scale of the system. The film does not necessarily resolve this imbalance but instead highlights its presence, inviting the audience to consider its implication. The message that emerges from these themes is not direct or dictated, rather than offering clear conclusion. The film presents a framework for reflection. It encourages viewers to think about the relationship between the individual and the structure they exist within, and to consider how power is distributed and maintained. The lack of explicit answer allowed the film to remain open-ended in its interpretations, making the experience more personal and subjective. Stylistically, the film supports its core idea through restraint and minimalism. The absence of exaggerated elements reinforce the sense that the themes are grounded in reality. This approach ensures that the focus remains on the underlying concept rather than being overshadowed by spectacle. It also aligns with the limitation of creating a more immersive and reflective experience. Ultimately, the core idea of the film can be understood as an exploration of pressure, control, and response. It is about how individuals exist within systems that shape their action and how they navigate the tension between acceptance and resistance. Through its theme of institutional power, moral ambiguity, and resilience, the film presents a story concept that is less about events and more about condition. It does not seek to provide clear solutions but rather to examine the dynamic that define human behavior within structured environment. The central conflict in this film is not built through a single event or confrontation, but rather around a sustained tension between opposing forces that operate on different levels. At its most abstract, the conflict can be understood as a struggle between the individual and an established system, one that is structured, persistent, and difficult to challenge. This dynamic creates a foundation for a range of moral dilemmas and internal challenges which together shape the film's deeper tension. One of the most significant aspects of the conflict is the imbalance of power. The system in question represent authority, order, and structure, while the individual represent autonomy, agency, and personal intact. This imbalance is not simply physical, it is procedural and psychological. The individual is required to operate within rules that are already defined, while the system functions within a degree of control that is not easily questioned. This creates a conflict that is less about direct confrontation and more about navigating constraint. Within this framework, moral dilemmas being to emerge. The individual is faced with decisions that do not have clear or comfortable answer. Choices are shaped by circumstances rather than clarity, and each option carries consequences that are difficult to predict or fully control. The conflict is not about choosing between right and wrong in a simple answer sense, but about deciding which compromise is most acceptable. This reduces the level of complexity that encourages reflection rather than judgment. Another important dimension of the central conflict is the idea of legitimacy versus justice. The system operates under a form of legitimacy. It follows procedure, maintains order, and presents itself as necessary. However, legitimacy does not always align with fairness or ethical balance. This creates a tension where the individual must decide whether to expect the system as it is or to question its validity. The challenge lies in recognizing that opposing the system may carry its own risks, both practical and moral. The conflict also explores the limit of patience and restraint at the beginning of any such tension. There is often an attempt to work within the boundaries provided. This reflects a belief that system, even flawed ones, can be navigated through persistence or compliance. However, as pressure builds, the effectiveness of this approach becomes uncertain. The individual is then faced with the challenge of determining with restraint with no longer sufficient and whether escalation becomes necessary. This transition is not straightforward. It is filled with hesitation, doubt, and internal conflict. The psychological dimension of the tension is particularly important. The conflict is not about external but about internal, as the individual must reconcile personal values with the reality to the situation. There is a constant negotiation between maintaining integrity and responding to external pressure. This creates a sense of unease as the individual is aware that any decision may alter their sense of self or their understanding of right and wrong. The influence of Jerome Saulnier is evident in how this conflict is constructed. Rather than presenting clear opposition, the film allows space for ambiguity and uncertainty. The tension is sustained through atmosphere and pacing rather than through constant escalation. This approach emphasizes the ongoing nature of the conflict, suggesting that it is not easily resolved or contained within a single moment. Another layer of the central conflict involves the idea of visibility and awareness. Systems often operate most effectively when they are not questioned, when their processes are accepted as routine. The act of recognizing a problem within the system becomes a form of conflict in itself. Awareness leads to discomfort, and discomfort leads to the need for action. However, taking action introduces new challenges as it requires stepping outside established norms. The conflict also raises questions about consequence and accountability. When an individual challenges a system, the outcomes are rarely isolated. Actions can ripple effects, influencing not only the individual but also the connected to the situation. This adds another layer of tension as decision must account for both personal and moral implications. The individual is not only responsible for their own choices but also for the potential impact of those choices. At its core, the central conflict is sustained by uncertainty. There is no clear path forward, no guaranteed resolution that satisfies all conditions. This uncertainty is what gives the conflict its depth and persistence. It reflects a reality where solutions are not easily defined and where each step forward involves a degree of risk. Ultimately, the tension in this film arises from the interaction between structure and resistance, between control and autonomy, and between legitimacy and justice. It is a conflict that exists on multiple levels, external, internal, moral, or psychological. By avoiding simple answer and focusing on the complexity of these interactions, the film creates a form of tension that is continuous rather than episodic, involving the viewers to engage with the underlying challenges rather than expecting a straightforward resolution. The film explores a set of themes that are grounded, layered, and closely tied to real world concern. Rather than presenting ideas in a dramatic or exaggerated way, now this creates a more nuanced understanding of responsibility and accountability. Another key theme is emotional endurance. Rather than focusing on dramatic emotional shift, the film emphasizes steady, sustained form of pressure. Characters are placed in situations that test their presence, silence, and sense of control. The emotional arc is not about transformation in a traditional sense, but about persistence, how individuals maintain themselves when faced with ongoing tension. This kind of emotional experience is subtle but impactful, as it reflects the way stress and pressure operate in real life. This theme is isolation also play a significant role. The film presents a world where individuals often navigate challenges without reliable support. This sense of isolation is not necessarily physical, it can also be psychological or situational. It creates a feeling of vulnerability as decision must be made without certainty or reassurance. The emotional weight of this isolation contribute to the film's overall tone, reinforcing its grounded in serious atmosphere. From a cultural perspective, the film touches on situational dynamic and social structure. It examines how systems are embedded within everyday life and how they influence behavior. These systems are not portrayed as abstract or distant, they are immediate and familiar. This makes the theme more accessible and relevant as they reflect experience that can exist in various contexts. The films invite viewers to think about how such structures operate in their own environment and how individuals interact with them. Another important cultural theme is the concept of trust in authority. The film raises question about how trust is built, maintained, and broken within systems that are meant to provide order. It explores the tension between expectation and reality, particularly when authority does not align with fairness. This theme resonates on a broader level as it reflects ongoing discussions in society about accountability and transparency. The film also engages with the idea of personal agency. With structured environment, individuals often have limited control over outcome. The theme of agency explores how much influence a person can realistically have when operating within constraint. It raises questions about choice, responsibility, and the context through which individuals can shape their own circumstances. This theme is closely tied to the film exploration of resistance and adaptation, highlighting the balance between acceptance and action. Another layer within the film's thematic structure is the tension between order and disruption. Systems are designed to maintain stability, but they can also surpass change. The film examines what happens when the stability is challenged and how disruption is perceived. Is it seen as a threat or as a necessary correction? This question adds complexity to the narrative, as it does not assume that order is always beneficial or that disruption is always harmful. Emotionally, the films avoid exaggerated sentiment and instead focusing on control intensity. The emotional arc or subtitle often expressed through restraint rather than overt expression. This creates a more immersive experience as viewers are required to engage actively with the material. The lack of clear emotional cues encourage interpretation, making the experience more personal. Ultimately, the theme explored in this film revolves around the interaction between the individual and the system they inhabit. Through its focus on ethical question, emotional endurance, and the cultural dynamic, the film presents a layered and thoughtful exploration of control, responsibility, and resilience. It does not attempt to simplify these ideas or provide definitive answer. Instead, it offers a framework for reflection, allowing viewer to engage with the theme in a way that feels both grounded and relevant. The emotional connection in Rebel Rage is built through restrained atmosphere and a quiet but persistent sense of pressure rather than overt emotional display. Instead of guiding the audience through clear emotional highs and lows, the films invite viewers to gradually settle into its mood, allowing feeling to develop in a more personal and internal way. This approach reflects the filmmaking style of Jimre Saulnier, who often prioritizes subtitle tension realism over direct emotional cues. At the level of the mood, the film establishes a steady, grounded emotional environment that leans towards serious and unease. This is a very clear emotional relief which creates a sense of continuity in how viewers experience the film. This consistency allows the audience to become fully immersed in the atmosphere rather than shifting rapidly between different emotional tones. The film maintains a constant intensity that slowly deepens over time. This can make the emotional experience feel more authentic as it mirrors the real way real life stress often builds gradually rather than appearing suddenly. One of the key ways the films connect with viewer is through its use of recognizable emotional condition. The theme it explores, such as pressure, limitation, and persistence, are not abstract in a distant sense. They are grounded in situations that feel plausible and relatable, even without focusing on specific events. The films create an emotional framework that many viewers can understand. The feelings of being constrained by circumstances, for example, is something that resonates across different background and experience. This universality allows the audience to project their own thought and feeling onto the film. The film's emotional impact is also shaped by its emphasis on tension rather than release. In many films, emotional engagement comes from moment of resolution or catharsis. In this film, however, the connection is formed through sustained tension. The viewer is not given frequent opportunity to relax or detach. Instead, they are encouraged to remain engaged with the ongoing pressure. This can create a more intense viewing experience as the lack of clear emotional resolution keep the audience mentally and emotionally involved. Another emotional aspect of the emotional connection is the film reliance. Now, this subtitle require the viewers to pay closer attention, actively interpreting what they see and hear. As a result, the emotional experience becomes more interactive. The audience is not simply receiving emotions, they are participating in the process of understanding them. The theme of reliance and endurance further deepen this connection. The film does not present resilience as something heroic or inspirational in our traditional sense. Instead, it is portrayed as a necessary response to ongoing pressure. This grounded appreciation makes the emotional experience feel more relatable. Viewers may not see themselves in extreme situation, but they recognize the feeling of continue despite difficulty. This creates a quiet form of empathy where the connection is based on shared emotional understanding rather than dramatic identification. The sense of isolation present in the film also plays a significant role in shaping the viewer's experience. Isolation here is not limited to physical separation, it extends to emotional and situational distance. This creates film an environment where support feels more emotional and situational distance. The film creates an atmosphere. This can lead to a feeling of vulnerability that resonates with the audience. Many viewers can relate to the moment in their own lives where they have had to navigate challenges independently. But this familiarity strengthens the emotional bond. Sound design and pacing contribute to this connection by reinforcing the film's mood. The use of silence or minimal background sound allow emotions to emerge naturally without being directed by a strong musical prism. This gives the viewers more space to interpret the emotional tone of each moment. In pacing, which is slow and deliberate, further support this process by allowing time for reflection. Instead of rushing from one moment to the other, the film encourages the audience with its emotional atmosphere. The viewer experience as a whole is one of gradual immersion. The film does not demand on immediate emotional response. It builds toward it over time. This can make the connection feel more lasting as it is not based on isolating moment but on an overall sense of involvement. By the end of the experience, viewers may find the emotional impact linger not because of a specific sense but because of a sustained mood and thematic depth. Ultimately, the emotional connection comes from the ability to reflect real emotional state in a controlled and understated way. Through its focus on mood, its exploration of relatable theme, and its emphasis on viewers' engagement, the film creates an experience that feels both personal and immersive. It does not rely on spectacle or overt emotion to connect with its audience. Instead, it builds a quieter, more introspective bond, one that develops gradually and remains with the viewers beyond the immediate viewing experience. In Rebel Ridge, the sound design follows a restrained and grounded approach, focuses more on internal presence than outward expression, rather than building characters around dramatic arcs or exaggerated traits. The film presents individuals who feel contained, controlled, and shaped by their environment. This aligns closely with the directing style of Giambre Saulnier, where character depth is revealed through subtitle behavior rather than explicit storytelling. The main character can be understood as a variation of the reluctant challenger archetype. This is not a figure defined by charisma or dominance, but by composure and restraint. The personality trait associated with this character lean toward calmness, discipline, and control intensity. There is a sense of internal structure, someone who operates with a clear personal code, even if that code is not openly stated. What stands out most is not emotional expression but emotional control. This creates a character who feels steady under pressure yet not entirely unaffected by it. Rather than building character around dramatic arc or exaggerated trait, the film presents individuals who feel contained, controlled, and shaped by their environment. These films align closely with the affecting style of Jamre Saulnier, From a reviewer perspective, this type of characterization involves the audience to observe rather than immediately connect. The emotional distance is intentional. Instead of presenting a highly expressive or relatable figure in a conventional sense, the film offers someone whose depth must be interrupted. This can be engaging for viewers who appreciate subtlety, but it may feel distant for those who expect more direct emotional cues. In contrast, it represents a different archetype, one that can be described as a institutional enforcer. The character is less about individuality and more about function. Personality traits here include confidence, rigidity, and a strong alignment with structure. There is a sense of certainty in how this character operates, which reinforces their role within a larger system. Unlike the main character, whose presence is defined by internal restraint, the authority figure presence is defined by external control. What makes this archetype effective is its lack of overt complexity. The character does not need to display a wide emotional range to be impactful. Instead, their consistency becomes their defining feature. This creates a contrast with the main character, highlighting different approaches to power and control. From a critical standpoint, this simplicity can be seen as both a strength and a limitation. It reinforces the thematic structure but may not offer the same depth of psychological exploration. The supporting characters serve as intermediaries within the narrative framework. They often embody the observer or participant archetype, positioned somewhere between the main opposing forces. Their personality traits tend to include uncertainty, adaptability, and situational awareness. These characters provide a different perspective, one that is neither fully aligned with authority nor entirely separate from it. From a reviewer standpoint, supporting characters play a crucial role in shaping the film's tone. This adds layer of realism by reflecting how individuals navigate complex environments without clear direction. Their presence reinforces the idea that not everyone operates with certainty or control. Instead, many exist in the space of negotiation, adjusting their behavior based on context. Another notable aspect of the character design is the emphasis on internalization. Across all archetypes, there is a shared tendency toward minimal expression and control behavior. This creates a unifying character style that supports the film's overall mood. Emotions are rarely externalized in dramatic way, instead they are contained, often compiled rather than shown. This stylistic choice requires the audience to engage more actively, interpreting subtitle cue rather than relying on explicit signals. The supporting characters serve as intermediaries within the framework. They may often embody the observer or participant archetype, positioned somewhere between the main opposing forces. Their personality traits tend to include uncertainty, adaptability, and situational awareness. These characters provide a different perspective, one that is neither fully aligned with authority nor entirely separate from it. From a reviewer's standpoint, supporting characters play a crucial role in shaping the film's tone. They add layers of realism by reflecting how individuals navigate complex environments without clear direction. Their presence reinforces the idea that not everyone operates with uncertainty or control. Instead, many exist in the space of negotiation, adjusting their behavior based on context. Another notable aspect of the character design is the emphasis on internalization. Across all archetypes, there is a shared tendency toward minimal expression and control behavior. This creates a unified character style that supports the film's overall mood. Emotions are rarely externalized in dramatic ways. Instead, they are contained, often implied rather than shown. This stylistic choice required the audience to engage more actively, interpreting subtitle cues rather than relying on explicit signals. The personalities within the films also reflect a broader theme of adaptation under pressure. Each character, regardless of their role, demonstrate a relationship with their environment. Some align with it, often resist it, but all are shaped by it. This creates a sense that character identity is not fixed but influenced by circumstances. From a critical perspective, this adds depth to the film's thematic structure, even if limits traditional character development. It is also worth noting that the films avoid idealized or exaggerated archetype. There are no clearly defined heroes or villains in a conventional sense. Instead, the character operates within a spectrum of behavior that feels more realistic. This ambiguity allows for a more nuanced interpretations as viewers are not guided toward a single perspective. Ultimately, the character analysis of the Rebel Ridge reveal a deliberate focus on restraint, subtlety, and thematic alignment. The character embodies control, resistance, the authority figure represents, and the supporting character reflect adaptability and uncertainty. Together they create a balanced framework that support the film tone and message, emphasizes the internal conflict and environmental influence over dramatic expression. The acting performance in this film are defined by restraint, control, and emotional subtlety rather than over dramatic. This is a film where performances are not designed to dominate the screen with intensity and but to quietly draw the viewers in through presence and nose. The overall acting style aligns closely with the direction of genre saulnier, who tend to favor realism and internalize emotions over expression or theatrical delivery. Focusing on the lead performance, Aaron Pierre delivers a portrayal that feels grounded and composed. His acting does not rely on exaggerated emotion or dramatic action. Instead, it is built on stillness and control. There is a noticeable sense of discipline in how he carries the role. His expression are measured, his reaction contained, and his presence consistent. These create a performance that feels steady and reliable, allow the audience to observe rather than directly toward a specific emotional response. Emotionally, this kind of performance can be very effective, but it also requires a certain level of engagement from the viewer. Because the emotions are not always explicitly shown, the audience must interpret them through subtitle cues such as body language, timing, and tone. This creates a more interactive experience where the emotional connection develops gradually for viewers who appreciate understated acting. Aaron's pyro performance offer a sense of authenticity and realism that feel closely aligned with the film's tone. Turning to the supporting cast, Don Johnson's bring a contrasting energy that complement the lead performance. His presence carry a sense of confidence and control expressed through a more outwardly assertive style. While still grounded in realism, his performance has a sharp edge, creating a dynamic contrast within the lead restraint. This difference in approach adds depth to the overall acting landscape, allow the film to explore multiple emotional tones without being unbalanced. The supporting performance as a whole contribute to the film's immersive quality rather than drawing attention to themselves. These actors blend into the environment, reinforcing the sense that the story exists within a realistic and lived-in world. Their performances are consistent within the film's minimalistic style, focusing on small, believable reaction rather than dramatic expression. This approach helps maintain the film's grounded atmosphere, as no signal performance feel out of place or exaggerated. One of the most important aspects of the acting in Rebel Rage is the chemistry between the characters. This chemistry is not built on overt emotional exchange or dramatic dialogue, but on subtitle interaction and unspoken tension. The relationship feels natural, as if shaped by circumstances rather than constructed or effect. This understated chemistry enhances the realism of the life, making interaction feel more authentic and less performative. The emotional connection between the characters often emerges through contrast. The lead, calm and controlled demeanor, is set against the most assertive or structured presence of other. creating a balance that keeps the interaction engaging. This contrast allows the audience to sense underlying tension without being explicitly stated. It is a form of emotional communication that relies on presence rather than dialogue, which can be more impactful in a film that prioritizes atmosphere. Another notable aspect of the performance is the emphasis on consistency. Each actor maintains a clear sense of their character's personality and emotional range throughout the film. There are no sudden shifts or exaggerated moments that break the tone. This consistency reinforces the film's overall mood, ensuring that the acting supports the narrative style rather than distracting from it. From an emotional standpoint, the performance creates a sense of quiet intensity. Instead of pushing the audience towards strong immediate reaction, they encourage a more gradual form of engagement. The viewer is given space to observe, interpret, and connect at their own pace. This can make the emotional experience feel more personal as it is not dictated by obvious cues. It is also worth noting that the film avoids the kind of performance that are designed purely for impact or recognition. There are no scenes that feel engineered to showcase dramatic ability in a traditional sense. Instead, the acting remains integrated within the film's overall structure, contributing to its tone and atmosphere. This reflects a deliberate choice to prioritize cohesion over individual standout moments. Ultimately, the acting performance in this film are defined by their subtlety and emotional restraint. The acting performance by Aaron Pierre provide a calm and control center, while the supporting cast include Don Johnson adds contrast and texture. The chemistry between characters is built on quiet tension and natural interaction, creating an emotional experience that feels grounded and immersive. Rather than seeking to impress through intensity, the performance connects through authenticity, inviting the audience to engage with the films on a deep and more reflective level. The sense of realism in this film is one of its most defining qualities, and it is closely tied to how the film approaches character depth. Rather than presenting exaggerated personalities or dramatic transformation, the film built its character through restrained consistency and subtle emotional shift. This approach reflects the directing style of saulnier, who is known for creating grounded, believable human behavior on screen. From the perspective of character development, the films avoid traditional, highly visible arc. Instead of clear turning point or dramatic reinvention, the development feels gradual and internal. Characters do not announce their growth through dialogue or overt actions, rather their evaluation is suggested through small changes in behavior, tone, and presence. This makes the development feel more realistic as it mirrors how people change in real life slowly, often without fully realizing it themselves. This subtitle form of development can require patience from the viewers. It does not provide immediate clarity or satisfaction, but it offers a more authentic sense of progression. The audience is invited to observe and interpret rather than simply receive information. This observational style strengthens the film realism as it avoids simplifying human behavior into easily defined stages. In terms of believability, the film maintains a strong commitment to authenticity. Characters feel like individuals shaped by their environment rather than constructed for dramatic effect. Their action and reactions are consistent with the tone of the film, which emphasizes control and restraint. There are no exaggerated emotional outbursts or unrealistic shift in personality and would break immersion. Instead, the behavior of each character feels grounded in a recognizable reality. The performance, particularly by Aaron Pierre, contributes significantly to this sense of believability. His portrayal is marked by controlled expression and physical illness, which reinforce the idea of a character who operates with discipline and internal focus. This kind of personal avoids drawing attention to itself, allowing the character to exist naturally within the film's world. The realism here comes not from dramatic display but from consistency and subtlety. Sporting performance, including that of Don Johnson, add another layer to this realism by presenting contrasting but equally believable personalities. Each character feels rooted in a specific role within the environment, and their behavior reflects that position. These create a network of interaction that feel organic rather than scripted, enhancing the overall sense of authenticity. The film's approach to emotional range is particularly noteworthy. Instead of showcasing a wide spectrum of emotion in an overt way, it focusing on a narrower range expressed with depth and control. Emotions such as tension, frustration, determination are present, but they are rarely displayed in exaggerated form. Instead, they are contained and gradually revealed through subtitle cues. This restrained emotional range does not dictate a lack of depth, rather, it suggests a different kind of depth, one that exists beneath the surface. The audience is encouraged to look beyond obvious expression and consider what lies underneath. This can create a more engaging experience as viewer must actively interpret the emotional state of the character rather than being directly shown. Another important aspect of realism in the film is the character respond to pressure. Their reactions are not always decisive or clear cut. There is a hesitation, uncertainty, and internal conflict, all of which contribute to a more believable portrayal of human behavior. People rarely act with complete confidence in difficult situations, and the film reflects this by allowing its character to exist in a state of tension rather than resolution. The environment also play a role in shaping character depth. Characters are not isolated entities; they are influenced by system and structure around them. This interaction between individual and environment adds complexity, and it suggests that behavior is not solely a matter of personal choice, but also a response to external conditions. This layer approach enhances both realism and depth, as it acknowledges the multiple factors that shape human action. From a reviewer perspective, the film's commitment to realism may not appeal to all audiences. Those who prefer clear character arc and expressive emotional movement may find the approach too subtitled or restrained. However, for viewers who value authenticity and nose performance, the film offers a compelling example of how character depth can be achieved without exaggeration. Ultimately, the film presents a version of realism that is quite controlled and deeply rooted in observation. Its character develop in subtitle way, behave in believable pattern, and express emotions with restraint. This combination create a form of depth that feels genuine and immersive, emphasizing the complexity of human behavior without relying on dramatic shortcuts. The production budget of the film can be understood as part of a mid-range filmmaking model that prioritizes control, efficiency, and focused storytelling. Estimate place the film's cost in the range of approximately $25 million to $35 million, which position it between low-budget independent project and large-scale studio production. This range is significant because it shapes not only what the film can include but also how it chooses to represent itself. A budget within this range typically requires careful allocation of resources rather than spreading funds across large-scale spectral production. At this level, tend to concentrate spending in areas that directly support tone and performances. In the case of the Rebel Ridge, a portion of the budget is directed towards securing capable actors such as Aaron Pierre and Don Johnson. These are experienced performers but not the kind of globally dominant star who would significantly increase costs. This indicates a strategy that values acting quality while maintaining financial balance. Another major area of allocation is location based production. Instead of constructing elaborate sets or relying heavily on digital environment, the film uses practical real world location. This approach reduces expenses associated with studio construction and extensive visual effect. It also aligns with the stylistic preferences of genre saulnier, whose work often emphasizes realism. By investing in authentic environment rather than artificial one, the production is able to maintain both cost efficiency and visual credibility. Technical resources are also managed in a way that reflect the film's grounded approach. There is a limited reliance on expensive CGI or large-scale action sequence that would require extensive post-production work. Instead, the film focuses on control practical technique. This includes simpler camera setup, natural lighting, and restrained visual style. This choice reduces overall production cost while reinforcing the film's realistic tone. Crew structure is another factor that contribute to the budget management. Genre saulnier involvement in multiple roles such as writing, directing, and editing suggest a streamlined production process. When key creative responsibilities are handled by a smaller number of individuals, it can reduce staffing cost and improve coordination. This kind of efficiency is common in mid-budget film, where maintaining a clear creative vision is often as important as controlling expenses. When comparing Rebel Rage to the similar film, its budget becomes more clearly defined. Many mainstream action films, particularly those tied to major franchise, operate with budgets exceeding $100 million. These films allocate large portion of their resources to visual effect, international filming locations, and high-profile actors. In contrast, it operates on a smaller scale, focusing on localized setting and character-driven storytelling. Even within the action thriller genre, there are more useful comparisons. The first John Wick film, for example, was produced with a budget in somewhat similar range, but it allocated more resources toward stylized action, choreography, and visual presentation. Rebel Ridge, by comparison, directed its budget toward atmosphere and realism rather than stylization. This difference highlights how films with the same general cost range can produce very different results based on creative priorities. The involvement of the Netflix on the distributive platform also influences how the budget is structured. Unlike theatrical releases, which depends heavily on box office revenue, streaming production are evaluated based on viewers' engagement overall platform value. This allows for more control budgeting as the financial return is not tied to ticket sale. As a result, films like this can operate with a moderate budget while still reaching a large audience. Overall, the production budget of the film reflects a deliberate balance between cost and creative intent. The estimated range of 20 to 25, $35 million support a film that emphasizes realism, performance, and controlled storytelling. Resources are allocated in a way that avoid unnecessary expenses while maintaining professional production quality. When compared to the both lower budget independent film and higher budget studio project, it occupies a middle ground that allows for both efficiency and creative focus. Now we talk about the domestic box office of this film. Can't be measured using traditional figure because it did not have a theatrical release. However, when viewed within the context of the modern audience trend and streaming distribution, its domestic reach can be considered substantial. The film represents a shift in how success is defined, moving away from ticket-based revenue toward audience engagement and accessibility. When analyzing its international box office performance of the film, the same structural limitation apply as with its domestic performance. The film did not follow traditional theatrical release model. Because it was distributed directly through Netflix, there are no official international box office recorded across regions such as Europe, Asia, or other global market. The absence of theatrical release means that its international performance must be interpreted through alternative indicators rather than standard financial metrics. From a regional standpoint, international box office typically reflect how film perform outside its domestic market, often highlighting the difference in cultural reception and marketing demand. In the case of Rebel Ridge, these distinctions are less visible in numerical terms because streaming platforms distribute content globally at the same time instead of staggered release or region specific rollout. The films becomes immediately accessible to a wide international audience. This creates a more uniform distribution pattern where regional performance is measured by viewership engagement rather than revenue. Despite the lack of box office figure. International market reception can still be considered through audience response and viewing trend. Film in the action thriller genre generally have reference. The movie, with its grounded tone and universal theme of authority and resistance, is likely to resonate across different regions. However, its slower pacing and restrained style may influence reception different depending on audience preferences. In market where high energy spectral driven action is more popular, the film may be perceived as more subdued. In contrast, regions that favor realistic and character driven storytelling may respond more positively. The use of marketing campaigns also distinct in a streaming context. Traditional international box office success often depends heavily on localized marketing campaigns, theatrical promotion, performance in specific region. For this movie, marketing is largely centralized through Netflix global platform. This includes digital platform, algorithm-based recommendation, and platform within trending or feature categories. This type of marketing strategy reduce the need for region-specific campaign, but also change how audience discover the film. Instead of relying on trailer in cinema or physical advertising, viewers encounter the film through personalized suggestions and platform visibility. This can lead to a different kind of international trend reach, one that is broader but less dependent on traditional promotional intensity. The concept of the global audience will also play a central role in evaluating performances through immediate accessibility, allow it to reach a broad international audience without the limitation of theatrical distribution. Instead of measuring success through revenue per ticket, the focus shifts to how many viewers engage with the film, how widely it is watched, and how it performs relatively to other content on the platform. In terms of revenue streams, streaming films operate within a subscription based model. Viewers do not pay specifically to watch Rebel, instead, they access it as part of their overall subscription. This means that the film contributes to revenue in direct way, such as attracting new subscribers, retaining existing users, and overall increasing platform engagement. The production budget of the film is estimated to fall within the mid-range, approximately $20 to $35 million. From the revenue versus cost perspective, the film estimated production budget fall within the mid-range, roughly between $25 million and $35 million. Now we talk about the audience reaction to this film has been shaped largely by viewers' expectation, demographic, and the film streaming release through Netflix. Overall, the response can be described as mixed to positive, with clear difference between audience group. From a demographic perspective, adult viewers, particularly those who enjoy grounded thriller and crime dramas, have responded more favorably. This group tend to appreciate slower pacing, realistic tone, and subtitle storytelling. In contrast, younger audience or viewer expecting fast-paced, high-energy action have shown more divided reaction. Their expectations of constant excitement sometimes do not align with the film's restrained style. In terms of viewers' feedback, many audiences have highlighted the film's realism and serious tone and strength. Comments often mention the controlled atmosphere, tension building approach, focus on authenticity. Viewers who prefer thoughtful, character driven film tend to value these elements. However, some feedback point to pacing as a challenge, with certain viewers describing the experience as slow or less engaging compared to mainstream action film. Engagement level on the platform indicates strong initial interest. The film attracted significant viewership shortly after release, suggesting that it is reached a wide audience. Its presence in trending sections and continued visibility and impile sustain attention over time. This type of engagement is particularly important in a streaming environment where success is measured by how many viewers start and complete the film. Another noticeable trend in audience reaction is the division between casual viewer and more dedicated film enthusiasts. Casual viewers often evaluate the film based on entertainment value, where enthusiasts focus on style, tone, and thematic depth. This difference leads to varied interpretations of the same experience. Overall, audience reaction to Rebel Ridge reflect a balance between appreciation for its realism and critique of its pacing. The film's concept more strongly with viewers who value subtitle and atmosphere, while others may find it less aligned and their expectation of the genre. The perception of the film is shaped in a unique way because it does not have a traditional box office performance to evaluate. Since the film was released through Netflix, the usual benchmarks such as opening weekend number or total gross are absent. This lack of visible financial data shaped how both audience and critics interpreted success. From a critical reception standpoint, the absence of box office pressure can work in the film's favor. Critics often assess streaming release more on artistic merit, tone, and execution rather than commercial performance. As a result, Rebel Ridge is more likely to be judged based on its direction, atmosphere, and thematic depth. This can create a perception of the film as a more serious or crafted project rather than a product driven by a mass market expectation. In terms of studio reputation, the involvement of Netflix plays a significant role. Netflix has developed a reputation for supporting mid-budget director-driven films that might not thrive in a theatrical environment. By hosting Rebel Ridge, the platform reinforces its identity as a space for diverse and experimental storytelling. As a reviewer, this association can signal that the film prioritizes creative intent over commercial spectrum, which can positively influence perception among certain audience. When compared to the similar film within the action thriller genre, the absence of box office data creates a different kind of positioning. Traditional action films are often judged by their financial success alongside their entertainment value. High grossing films are typically perceived as wildly appealing, while low grossing ones may be seen as less impactful. Rebel Ridge, however, exists outside this framework. Without box office number, it is not directly competing with large scale production, allowing it to be evaluating in its own terms. At the same time, this lack of financial visibility can create uncertainty. Some viewers rely on box office performance as an indicator of quality or popularity. Without that reference point, perception may depend more heavily on word of mouth reviews and platform visibility. Overall, the presence of box office performance shifts perception away from commercial success and toward critical evaluation and platform context, giving Rebel Ridge a different kind of identity within its genre. From a reviewer perspective, Rebel Ridge stands as a controlled and deliberate piece of filmmaking that prioritizes atmosphere and realism over spectacle. Its cinematic quality is defined by restrained measuring paces, grounded visuals, and a consistent tonal approach that reflect the style of Saulnier. The film avoids stylistic excess, instead focusing on clarity and immersion, which give it a quiet but steady presence. In terms of production value, the film operates efficiently within its mid-budget range. There is no reliance on large-scale visual effect or elaborate set pieces. Instead, the emphasis is on practical location, natural lighting, and minimalistic visual design. This approach support the film's realism and ensure that every element feels purposeful rather than decorative. While it may not appear visually grand, it maintains a level of polish that reflects careful planning and execution. The references are a central strength. Our own Pierre deliver a composed and internally driven performance, relying on subtitle expression rather than overt emotion. His presence anchored the film, providing consistency and focus. Don Johnson add contrast with a more outwardly assertive style, creating a balanced dynamic. The supporting cast complement this approach, contributing to a cohesive and believable performance landscape. The film's theme, including control, authority, individual agency, are hidden with nose rather than presenting clear conclusion. The film allows these ideas to emerge gradually, encouraging reflection. This thematic restraint, along with the overall tone, reinforcing the sense of realism and complexity. Overall, the film may not appeal to viewers seeking fast-paced entertainment, but it succeeds as a thoughtful and grounded thriller. Its strength lies in its discipline, subtlety, and commitment to a consistent vision, making it a compelling experience for those who appreciate understated atmosphere-driven cinema. This film is recommended for thoughtful viewers who appreciate subtitle atmosphere driven storytelling. For those expecting fast-paced entertainment or light viewing may not find it satisfying. This film is ideal for viewers who appreciate serious grounded cinema. The film works best for fans of slow burn thriller and realistic action drama. If you enjoy film that build tension gradually and rely on mood rather than constant action, River Ridge fit well within that space. Viewers who appreciate the directing style of Jamre Solinier, known for control pacing and grounded narrative, are especially likely to connect with it. If your preference lean toward high energy, fast paced action film with frequent set pieces, this film may feel too restrained or slow.